A few minutes ago, he was driving his bike on the hills. Seemed like a normal day, until he saw a truck in front of him with a vending machine. He saw the straps holding the vending machine tearing down, and thought that for some reason he needs to save the vending machine. As a result, he went flying down the hill while hugging the vending machine. He wakes up and sees a lake in front of him. He thinks he's lucky to survive and tries to get up, but his body doesn't move. But all he says are pre-recorded vending machine messages. He gets more confused, but he looks down and sees his reflection. He was turned into a vending machine. He thinks this is pretty much a joke. But after looking at his reflection again, he starts to praise his new image. Not only that, but he also even praises his own prices, until he realizes that being reborn as a vending machine is the worst possible thing. He tests all his recorded messages, realizing he cannot speak to anyone. He closes his eyes and concentrates. If you like my videos, you can support me by becoming a channel member, or you can donate me on Buy Me a Coffee. Your support will encourage me to make more videos. You can find links in the video description.
Yeah.
Until he sees a message appearing in his head. He's currently selling only cold mineral water and warm corn soup. He then heard a voice, telling that he could sell more stuff if she spent points. Those points are converted from money, and he can use them to stock up, get new products and get new functions. He decides to check his other functions and possible items that he could sell. He goes through the list of items, and decides to spend 10 points to get cold milk tea. Suddenly, one row of water bottles magically transforms into milk tea. He researches even more and finds out that he can sell them for 100 yen, which will be converted to 1 point. He then suddenly sees some movement in the water. He happily thinks it's a client, but turns out it's a frog. This frog was as big as a human, wearing armor and holding a club. He thought the frog was his first customer. So he played his pre-recorded voice. The frog panicked and backed down, just to smack him with its club. He took 3 damage, and his durability was reduced by the same amount. The frog continued to strike, damaging him. The system tells that he can restore his durability by spending points. The frog decided to call 3 more frogs with bats and axes instead. His durability was decreasing even faster now. He tried to check the system to find any solution until he saw the skill blessing. His durability is almost reaching a critical value. When he sees the barrier skill, he immediately picks it, and finds out that it will create an invisible barrier to protect him. He activates the skill, and the barrier knocks the frogs away. After a full day, they finally give up and walk away. He spends points to recover his durability, but that cost him over 600 points. And if he doesn't sell anything in 10 days, he will die. Several days have passed, and he already accepted his fate. He wished he could at least have sold something before dying. Suddenly he hears a hunter girl shouting. She's in a fighting posture but doesn't attack him. Suddenly, she notices Boxo. She's confused and thinks that he's a monument. She's impressed to see drinks being displayed. Boxo then uses his recorded message to welcome her and tells her to insert coins. She inserts a Cooper coin, but it's returned. She thinks that it's not enough. But the system tells Boxo that he needs the coin conversion function to accept the coin. He buys the function for 100 points, and the prices get adapted to this world's currency. But a water bottle is 1 silver coin. The girl thinks it's expensive, but she's hungry. She inserts the silver coin and picks the corn soup. She picks up the soup bottle and gets happy because it's warm. She opens it up and starts drinking, and finds it tastier than most of the stuff she's been eating. Boxo finally feels happy in this world. He feels pleased that someone was satisfied with his products. But the girl wants to try more stuff, especially milk tea. She bought more soup, water, and milk tea. She ate everything and fell asleep beside Boxo. He decided to activate his barrier to protect her. After all, she is the only customer. She wakes up the next day, happy that she could eat and rest. So she thanks Boxo, who replies with his thank you message. She thinks he can speak, but he doesn't reply. She mentioned her friend who researched magical items that contained sealed voices, speculating whether he was the same. She asked him to say something if he understood. In response, he uttered hello, which made her happy and led her to believe that it meant yes. She got happy and decided to show Boxo to his friend. She immediately picked him up and started to walk away. He couldn't understand how she could carry him but thanked her in his heart. While traveling, he found out that Lammies can easily carry him away because her blessing gives her insane strength. She decided to have a quick stop and eat some soup. But he felt bad for her because it wasn't so filling. So he used his points to exchange for some chips. She couldn't stop eating and bought 32 cans of chips. Lammies continued carrying him until they reached the nearby village. The village guards were happy to see her safe, because her hunting group got back to the village very injured. But they're curious about the metal box she was carrying. She explained she found it by the lakeside and decided to take it with her. They had never seen a vending machine before. She gets worried that she shouldn't have bought Boxo. Boxo is confused as hell. They talk about levels and wonder if he's inside a labyrinth. The guards ask if they can buy something, and Boxo replies with yes. They get startled to hear a machine talking. The guards insert their coins and buy corn soup and milk tea. They love it, and end up buying everything. They ask her to bring Boxo in the future because they cannot leave their place while guarding. Lammies agrees and proceeds to the village. But she notices something strange in an alleyway. There's a bunch of creeps making a little girl cry. She moves toward them and kicks one into Narnia, while carrying Boxo, and then confronts the remaining two. They end being scared cats and run away. Lammies checks on the girl and goes back to her place. Her friend immediately jumps on her and hugs her. She was so worried about her. She notices Boxo and asks what it is. Lammies explains everything and places Boxo outside so that people can buy stuff. Boxo then finds out that he's inside of a dungeon, and that Lammies needs to pay for a teleport circle to go back to the surface. But she cannot use it, because she used her money on him. Boxo quickly became famous and people were buying stuff left and right. He managed to get over 3,000 points, but people were already tired of his items, so he decided to add items to his menu. The guards immediately bought it and found it delicious. More and more people started to buy them, but Boxo didn't want to ruin the local inn restaurant, so he turns food unavailable during the day, and only sells it at night. Lammies is still helping him make his sales by carrying around, and hopes that one day, he will be able to talk to her without pre-recorded messages. One day a bear-like human comes to Boxo and introduces himself as a chief of Hunters Society. He asks our duo to join him on attacking the frog's lair. Lammies and Boxo accepted the offer. Few days later they went on a hunt. While resting, one of the hunters comes to Boxo and decides to buy some food and gets shocked when tasting the food, saying it's very tasty. He wonders how does Boxo gets the food and calls a woman who knows magic and asks her to check Boxo. But she says she doesn't feel any magic. Later a lot of people buying food and Boxo decides to add ramen to the menu, which everyone liked immediately. We meet Shui, who is a bodyguard of Boxo. The next day the group comes the lair of frogs and starts fighting them. Lammies gets attacked by the frog, but she easily kills her and tells that thanks to Boxo her accuracy has increased.
What?
Later our group gets surrounded. One frog attacks Shui and Lammies, but Boxo uses his shield to defend them. Boxo uses 1,000 points to increase his vision. Lammies gets distracted once again and Boxo has to use his ability to save her again. The captain gets suspicious about Boxo and his power. Later all the frogs were defeated, but the captain wants to earn money and offers to fight more frogs. Filmina tells him that their main goal is to defend Boxo and Lammies, and if Lammies will agree then they will go. Lammies decides to agree and they fight more frogs. Unfortunately, there are a lot of injured and Boxo decides to share some sports water with them. Later from the conversation between Bear and the captain we learned that there might be a frog king nearby. At night one idiot decides to hack Boxo. But Boxo sets him a trap which angers the idiot. He tries to attack Boxo but Lammies stops him just in time. Suddenly a frog king appears and everyone starts to run. Lammies uses her power to drag the carriage. Boxo gets a brilliant idea. He drops the Coca-Cola and uses his skill to drop Mentos as well. Now the hardest part is how to tell Lammies to mix them. Suddenly, the idiot guy wakes up and the guards put Mentos and cola into his mouth and are shocked to see the reaction. Lammies finally understand what Boxo wanted to say and using cola with Mentos on the Frog King's eyes, and the group finishes him off. As they head back they suddenly noticed that the village was attacked. Lammies rushes back to the end but it's been completely destroyed and she worries about Minami. However Boxo manages to calm her down and Lanas thinks Minami could have evacuated to the Hunters Association. We see a giant double-headed snake which was responsible for all the damage and Lammies finds the two guards. She asks about Minami and her mother and the guards tell her they are safe inside. We see that the building is well guarded because it's where the transfer circle is located. Minami welcomes Lammies back and they are happy everyone is safe. Boxo thinks about helping the people and he decides to give them all free items for the day. At night we learn that the snake is normally the natural enemy of the frog monsters and Boxo is surprised to see the villagers cooking it up for food. There's a huge line since he's giving away free items and it even helps attract some new faces. He thinks it will make him even more money in the long run and we see he has even started selling alcohol. Lammies gets a bit drunk, happy that everything turned out well. She is also happy seeing everyone gathered around him and she thinks he has become an integral part of their lives. The next day the people start the repairs and Boxo is set up at the association where there are plenty of people around. Lamas visits him mentioning that the director gave her a personal request and it's to help with removing the rubble. She takes Boxo over to the end and she starts moving the rocks, easily smashing them into pieces. Her car gets full and she prepares to take it to the dump, but Calroy suddenly appears. He offers to treat everyone to some of Boxo's items. Lamas gets excited and Calroy tries to recruit her to his team along with Boxo, but she instantly refuses. Calroy walks off rejected and Lami says she's too busy with helping rebuild the inn. The next day Boxo was visited by a woman and her assistant. Lamis wonders who they are and the woman introduces herself as a Kawi from the exchange house. She mentions they are there because it seems the village is low on silver coins. Lamis thinks it must be because Boxo only takes silver coins and he can't believe she ratted him out. Akawi proposes exchanging for her gold coins, but Boxo isn't able to do it since he doesn't have an exchange function. Lami suggests they could just buy something with a gold coin and they will be able to get the silver coins as change. They end up with a whole chest full of silver coins, but the thief sees their exchange. Later on we see an old man in front of Boxo and we see he has added a lottery function. The man is devastated when he loses, wanting to spin again, but he ends up getting dragged off by his wife. The young girl Siori visits with a bunch of rocks to cause trouble, but she dropped them all when she is startled by his voice and she gets carried off by some men. As she approaches again the next day, she is disappointed that her father is away. Boxo can tell she is feeling down, so he gives her a free juice and she thanks him. At night Boxo gets set up at the bathhouse and we see that he also sells hygiene products like shampoo and he seems to be a big hit with the furry creatures. The next day the old man is back and this time with his granddaughter. He teaches her about the lottery function and the girl is excited to try. She actually ends up winning and her grandfather can't believe it. She gets an item for free, but she ends up just giving it to her grandfather to make him happy, saying she had a great time with him, and it seems Boxo rigged it for her. The next day the director approaches Boxo. He heard that Boxo now has the ability to disguise himself, so he asks him to hide out where a bunch of crimes have been taking place so he can help identify the culprit. He ends up being set up right outside the front of the association. Lamis wonders where he has gone, but Minami reminds her the director was borrowing him, so Lamis continues to help around the association. Boxo has a quiet day, but we see Siori looking around for him. She runs into Lamis and she wonders if she has given any more thought to her proposal. However, Lamis says she's not going to sell Boxo. Siori says she would have enough money for the rest of her life, but Lamis refuses, saying Boxo is irreplaceable. Siori wonders what Boxo truly is, but even Lamis isn't sure. She thinks that since he can understand and respond to everything, she sees him the same as another person, and Boxo is happy to hear she feels this way. Siori declares she will give Boxo one way or another, but she leaves for the day, telling Lamis to take care of him until that day comes. Boxo reappears and Lamas is shocked to see him, but she tells him she missed him and she is excited to tell him about her day. The next day we see Boxo as he gets wheeled around on a cart, but it turns out he has actually been kidnapped and he wonders where he's being taken. A few hours earlier we see Boxo getting approached by a group of men. They tell him they were hired by the director to help reinforce the walls. So they tell him the director wants him to go with them so he can help feed the workers. Boxo knows this is the shady guy that tried to steal from him, but he thinks he must be reformed. Since he's working for the director, he agrees to go with them. So the men load him onto their cars, but after 8 hours he comes to the realization of what's really going on. He wonders how far they're going and they eventually stop to have a break. While they are stopped, Boxo takes the chance to use his security camera to take photos of all of their faces. He's approached by the thief and the man threatens him to give them food. Boxo refuses, so the man stabs him, causing him to take some damage. But the boss reprimands the thief, telling him not to damage the merchandise. The boss tells Boxo to hand over all his money, but Boxo refuses. They know Boxo is able to repair himself, so the boss tells his men to rough him up. The men start bashing into him, and although the damage isn't a lot, he wonders if there's anything he can do about it. He gets a notification that he can enhance his toughness by spending 1,000 points, and it instantly makes him tougher, reducing the damage from the attacks to 0. The boss notices that Boxo doesn't seem to be repairing, getting worried they may have broken him, but the thief assures him it's fine. Boxo gives them some drinks and the man is relieved he is still working. They all try out the drink, but it turns out to be disgusting, because it was Boxo's lowest rated drink. They reach their base at night and Boxo gets taken inside. They tell a woman to take a look at him, but they get scared as she approaches, so they just throw her the instructions and quickly run away. The woman starts talking to Boxo and he wonders if he should answer honestly. The woman introduces herself as Hulami and Boxo recognizes her as friend. She's actually a magic item engineer and it turns out she was also kidnapped. Bakso starts talking to her and she is instantly impressed to see a magic item that can understand and speak with people. She reads the instructions and she soon figures out how he can communicate. Kalami reveals she has experimented with trying to give magic items human intelligence but concluded it's not possible with their technology, so she started thinking about putting a human soul into an item instead. Bakso is amazed she figured it out and Halami says she needs a drink from all-out excitement. Bakso gives her one of his teas and she finds it delicious. They keep on talking and Bakso confirms he actually has a human soul and has memories of his past. Kalami wonders why he requires money because normal magic items don't require any. Bakso decides to show her transform into his other form and Hilumi realizes he must use the money to gain additional functions. She wonders what else he can do, so he shows her his barrier skill. She thinks it's some kind of wall, but Bakso lets her pass through and Halami is amazed he can even use a blessing. But Bakso was impressed she is working everything out so quickly. Kalami goes to sleep and Bakso wonders if the people in the village have noticed that he's missing. At that moment the bandits return wanting to get payback on Halami for scaring them. But Bakso suddenly transforms, turning into a magazine dispenser, and he instantly attracts the man. The men become too distracted and they all decide to head back to their rooms saying they have business to take care of. The next day a man comes in to give Halami food. Halami is disappointed seeing a single loaf of bread, so Bakso decides to give her some of his food. He treats her to all kinds of different foods and she thinks he is even better than a restaurant. Halami is completely stuffed, but the boss enters wanting to know what she has figured out. Halami doesn't want to cooperate, but the boss tells her she has 2 days to figure out how to get Bakso's money, so Bakso thinks they need to find a way to escape. Then Halami continues on with examining him and their time is running out. Bakso thinks about making a distraction to give Halami a chance to get away, but Halami has a serious talk with him, telling him not to think about sacrificing himself because the area is surrounded by monsters. So even if she got away she wouldn't be able to survive. She gets tired so she calls it for the night. But Bakso wonders what to do about their deadline. During the night there is suddenly a commotion outside. So he quickly wakes Halami up. They realize there's a fight going on outside and they suddenly hear Lami's voice. We see the fight outside and Lami's calls for Bakso charging into the building. Halami is surprised that Bakso is friends with Lami's and she thinks they should be fine to just wait to be rescued. But Halami suddenly thinks they could be in trouble because besides storing all their gold here the bandits also have explosives. Bakso worries hearing this and some of the explosives go off causing the ceiling to come crashing down. But Bakso protects them with his barrier. Kalami wonders if he can hold the barrier forever. But he admits that he can't. He thinks he would survive being crushed since he upgraded his toughness, but he worries for Halami. She realizes that his ability must use money, so she points out the bandit's stash of gold. Bakso lets it through his barrier and he jacks up the prices on all his items. While Halami deposits all the money into him, Bakso gains an insane number of points and he thinks he'll be able to hold out until Lami saves them. But Halami suddenly collapses. Bakso realizes she can't breathe because his barrier also stops air from getting in. He thinks about what he can do and he suddenly transforms to turning into an oxygen vending machine. Halami is able to breathe and Bakso is glad he was a vending machine fanatic in his past.
What?
Knowing that in 1965 there were oxygen vending machines because there were concerns about air pollution, Halami thinks she would fall for him if he were a man, and even Bakso is charmed by her. Lami's makes it to them and she is overjoyed to finally find him. She slips through the barrier crashing into him, but she cries thinking she had lost him. She hugs onto him apologizing for not watching him and he is glad to be reunited with her as well. Lami's eventually realizes Halami is also there and Halami is glad they got out safely. Filmina wonders why Calroy helped out when there was no money involved. Calroy says he's just a nice guy, but Filmina knows he is trying to gain a favor from Bakso, and Calroy says they will achieve their dream by any means necessary. We see Lami's as a child, using her strength to catch fish with Halami. Halami thinks her parents will be happy, but we learn Lams gets into trouble for constantly breaking things at home. She suddenly stands before Bakso where she thanks him for saving her, but we see she is just dreaming, telling him not to leave her again. Halami tells Bakso that after he was abducted Lami's kept looking for him and didn't even sleep. She mentions their past, revealing that their village was wiped out and Lami's lost her parents. Despite having her strength she was too scared to do anything and it became her biggest regret. Bakso wants to do whatever he can to help her and she dreams they'll be together forever. The next day Halami decides to stick around in the village and Lami's heads off to do some work. Halami and Bakso get approached by Sui's bodyguards. The man tells them that Sui will be coming to make a request from them and he hopes that they will accept the requests. The men panic as they hear Sui approaching, so they quickly leave. Sui introduces herself to Halami and she asks for a favor. Halami wonders what she wants and Sui explains there is a gathering of merchant families where they reveal their newest magic items. The organizer is a rival Kana and she gets mad even thinking about her. Halami thinks it sounds interesting and Bakso agrees as well. They go over to the event and Bakso looks around for Sui's rival. Sui approaches her and they pretend to get along. Kana checks out the competition looking over a Halami and Bakso, but she is confident she will win. The presentations begin and we see the first participant show off his latest invention. He introduces it as a magic weapon that can transform. Halami thinks it's a good idea, but it turns out he is just putting different attachments onto a stick and everyone is disappointed.
Bruh.
After a number of other lackluster presentations, Halami starts to get bored. But it comes to Kana's turn. Her engineer reveals a robot claiming he has succeeded in the dream of giving intelligence to a magic item. Halami is shocked, thinking he must have put someone's soul inside the robot, and she notes that it's banned by the Magic Engineer Association because it's too dangerous, mentioning that a whole town was destroyed in the past because of it. The robot impresses everyone as it can follow commands, but it suddenly starts to go wild, wanting to kill everyone. The man tries to turn it off, but he gets thrown away as the robot blames him for awakening it. Halami orders Sui's men to help out, but they all get thrown away. Halami jumps onto it, targeting its magic seal, and she manages to turn it off, apologizing to the soul that was used. The crowd suddenly realizes who Halami is, and we learn she has quite the reputation for being a troublemaker. Halami claims all her incidents were from her youth and Sui declares her victory over Kana. After some time, winter arrives and we see all the town's restaurant owners in a meeting led by Minami. They discuss the arrival of a popular restaurant and they worry about going out of business. Minami reveals Bakso as their secret weapon and she bribes him by getting Lami's a discount at the end. We see the restaurant has opened up and they have a huge line of people wanting to get in. Lami's and Halami go and try out the food, but they find it's pretty average, thinking it doesn't even compare to Bakso's food. Lami's thinks the food is bland and Bakso thinks that it's because seasoning isn't cheap in this world. But this gives an idea. In Minami's next meeting, she thinks that they need to come up with a new menu to save their customers. They all bring out their latest creations and Lami's and Halami taste the food. They give suggestions on how to make it better while Bakso transforms, giving them a sample of what it should taste like. All the owners rush to get advice and they become inspired by Bakso samples. We see that at the chain restaurant all the owners has set up food stalls outside offering their new dishes and they start to attract the people waiting in line. The people are amazed by all the new foods turning out to be a huge success and the restaurant ends up going out of business and closing down. As all the owners celebrate, Calroy approaches Bakso. He tries to invite Bakso on a campaign but Bakso instantly declines. Calroy reminds him how he helped out when he got abducted and Bakso considers changing his mind. But Calroy tells him to talk it over with Lami's. Halami thinks that most people would want the opportunity to join Calroy's group and she wonders what Lami's wants. Halami says she wants to fight so she can get stronger, but Halami wonders if she is after revenge and Bakso wants to help her in any way he can, turning into a flower machine, and he cheers Lami's up. Bakso thinks about what Halami told him about Lami's past, and as spring approaches the hunters will become active again. He wants to be able to protect her. He is suddenly approached by a girl, but she quickly hides behind him as the guards approach. The guards get some stew and his friend wonders why he keeps eating the same thing, but the guard insists it's his favorite. We learn that the girl is into him, but she's just too shy to make a move. Bakso decides to help her out, transforming into a new form and giving her some vegetables. He gives her a bunch of other ingredients as well, and she realizes he is telling her to cook the man's favorite stew. The girl thanks him and we learn they ended up getting together. Spring arrives and it seems Lami's and Bakso have agreed to go on Calroy's expedition. We learn they are going to check up on the crocodile monsters since they are one of the three main monster factions in their area, and after dealing with the frog boss and the twin-head snake they are going to check to see if the crocodile monsters have over-multiplied as well. The group prepares to leave and Halami reveals she is also going, saying that the director hired her to perform an ecology survey. They head off and Calroy is glad to finally get out of the town. They are suddenly attacked by some frog monsters, but the group easily fights them off. Lami's wants to get involved and she thinks about throwing rocks. Bakso thinks throwing would be a good use of her strength, so he gives her a reinforced bottle to throw. She gives it her best, but she ends up completely missing. The group stops for a break and they enjoy all of Bakso's food. They are glad they don't need to hunt for their food. Bakso shows off his new function, adding an emergency box, and it turns out to contain the parts of a portable toilet. The group thinks it's amazing and Calroy tries to take credit for it since he convinced Bakso to join, but the group doesn't buy it. They continue on and Calroy mentions they are entering the crocodile's territory. He decides to send Akka and Sheer to scout, so they head off while the rest of the group waits. When they return, they report that they found a group of around 30 crocodiles. Halami mentions that a normal group is between 10 to 50 and Kelroy thinks that since there aren't an abnormally large amount of them they can just leave them alone. But Filmina mentions that the crocodiles go for a high price, so she wants to take them out. Calroy ends up agreeing and they decide to rest up for the night. As they sleep we see Halami telling Lamis to be careful. She wishes there was something she could do for the fight, mentioning the crocodiles are weak to the cold, and Bakso suddenly turns into an ice machine. Halami gets an idea, wondering how much ice he can make, and we see Bakso dumping ice into the river. The next day the crocodiles end up all getting out from the cold and Kelroy thinks this is their chance. He asks Filmina to create a fog, but she says she can't cover such a large area. They wonder what they should do and Bakso turns into another machine. He starts dumping dry ice into the river and it creates fog over the whole area. Calroy tries to take credit once again, but Filmina says Bakso is more useful than him. Calroy gets depressed thinking he is useless, but they end up heading off to hunt the crocodiles. Hilami is left with Bakso and she explains her real mission from the director is to investigate the appearances of the boss monsters. They are meant to be quite rare, but after 2 of them have appeared she wonders if something is going on. There is suddenly a huge crash and the group comes rushing back. We see Lamis unconscious and they are being chased by the crocodont boss. Calroy tells Halami to jump on, but she doesn't want to leave Bakso. However, he pushes her away with his barrier and Kelroy grabs onto her. Bakso transforms and starts making noise to grab the boss's attention. He upgrades his durability and his toughness, but he still gets blown away by the boss and he loses 1,000 points from the hit. Bakso thinks his barrier won't be enough. He wants to protect the group, so he transforms once again and he shoots some fried chicken lunches at the boss. The boss starts to eat it, so he spits out a whole mountain of them, but the boss ends up eating him in a single bite. Bakso finds himself inside the boss' stomach and he notices his points are rapidly decreasing. He transforms into a laundry dispenser, attacking with Tide Pods, and it starts to give the boss a stomachache. Bakso knows it's not enough, so he turns into a gas machine and he fills the boss's insides with gas. He then turns into his heating mode and he summons a can into his microwave. Together with some paper he heats it all up and he manages to start a fire. He shoots it out of his barrier, causing an enormous explosion, and we see Bakso as the only thing that remains. The boss drops a special coin, but as he takes it the ground suddenly splits and Bakso falls through the ground.
Michael, don't leave me here. Michael.
To slow down the falling, Bakso turns into a balloon vending machine and fills with balloons inside the barrier. Then he turns into a cardboard vending machine. Because this vending machine is handmade from cardboard, his body becomes very light. Thankfully, beneath the clear flow lake stratum is a huge maze that he can land safely. Before landing, Bakso takes pictures of the maze with a video camera. After arriving at the maze, Bakso finds that his points are suddenly added to more than 1,000,000 points. He guesses that this is a reward for defeating the Lord. As long as he defeats the enemy he can earn points, so he uses 1,000,000 points to upgrade the level of the vending machine to rank 2. After leveling up, he can turn into many things that he couldn't change before, such as the coin-operated vacuum cleaner. He then picks up the top treasure he just obtained. The name of the treasure is the 8-legged crocodile coin, which is only a sign that he defeated the Lord. As the transformation has a time limit, Bakso returns to the ordinary vending machine soon. Although he only has less than 20,000 points left after the upgrade, he also has the function of a solar panel and he can earn points by basking in the sun. While basking in the sun, Bakso meets 4 cute creatures called bearcats. They are being chased by the 3 giant pig fiends and one of them is injured. Bakso thinks they are very cute and wants to help them. He uses the mimicry function to hide and keeps smashing the giant pig fiends with his drinks. After being hit, the giant pig fiends flee in a hurry. Bakso lifts the mimicry function to reveal himself and says hello to the Bearcats. Unexpectedly they are taken aback by him. Bakso worries that if he misses them it will be difficult for him to meet anyone else. So he turns into a fast food vending machine and gives them a box of fried chicken. The Bearcats are also hunters. They are known as greedy fiends and are big eaters. In order to pay for their usual expenses they have to go to the maze to find the treasure. They think Bakso is a magical treasure and decide to take him away. Bakso tries to talk to them but they think that Bakso is just a magic item without consciousness and ignore him. While heading to the exit of the maze, Bakso worrying that they will encounter the giant pig. Fiends again summons the barrier because two of the Bearcats do not enter the barrier. They mistakenly think that Bakso is trying to trap their companions. So Bakso turns into a drink vending machine trying to communicate with them using the text on the machine's screen. But they can't read Japanese and they still can't communicate properly. Bakso then turns into a fast food vending machine to win them over with food. They are very simple and they think that Bakso who can make food cannot be a bad guy. At this time a group of giant pig fiends attacks them. To protect them Bakso turns into a kerosene vending machine. The giant pig fiends step on the kerosene and all fall. Unexpectedly they soon encounter another problem. The boss Flame Skeletitan suddenly appears in front of them. The Bearcats cannot defeat the boss and flee with Bakso immediately. While resting at night Bakso notices that 3 flame skulls are approaching them. He wakes up the Bearcats and provides them with icy mineral water. The Bearcats are well in tune with each other and join forces to defeat the flame skulls. After dawn they set out again on the way to the exit of the maze. During this time they meet Director Bear and Lammies. It turns out that Lammies went to the maze in search of Bakso under the guidance of Director Bear. She is accompanied by Hulami and the riding group of the Menagerie of Fools. Director Bear thanks the riding group and the Bearcats, deciding to invite everyone to dinner. Because the Bearcats are curious about Bakso, Director Bear and Lammies explain Bakso's self-awareness. The Bearcats are shocked that Bakso will actually understand what they are saying. After eating, Director Bear conveys a very important message to Bakso. It turns out that in addition to looking for Bakso they come to the maze for another purpose, which is to defeat the boss Flame Skeletitan. This is a decision made by Director Bear and the Menagerie of Fools riding group. Director Bear has a strong sense of responsibility. The reason why he wants to defeat the Flame Skeletitan is to protect the hunters, which is different from the riding group's purpose. Each hunter in the riding group has a goal which is related to the legend of the maze. It is rumored that any wish can be fulfilled if someone reaches the condition at the bottom of the maze. This condition refers to the coins obtained by defeating the boss. 1 coin can grant 1 wish. The riding group has collected 3 coins. Carryoil wants Bakso and Lammies to come with them, because only by reaching the very bottom of the maze will they be able to grant their wishes with coins such as becoming a human and so on. Bakso is very excited. With Lammis's consent, he accepts Carryoil's invitation. Hulami, not wanting to be separated from them, decides to continue participating in their campaign. After a night's rest they decide to start looking for the Flame Skeletitan. Bakso notices that Director Bear's maze map is inaccurate and shares his photos of the maze with them. After setting off, Director Bear proposes a plan to attack the Flame Skeletitan. There is a trap in the maze. As soon as a certain weight is reached the trap will be activated, creating a large hole. Director Bear's plan is to throw the Flame Skeletitan into the big hole and then they join forces to attack it. Worrying that the Lord's flames will melt all attacks, Carryoil proposes filling the hole with water. Bakso transforms into a high-pressure water gun vending machine to meet Carryoil's requirements. But this advanced machine can only last for an hour a day and Bakso has to use some other methods. He offers a lot of bottled water for them to throw into the hole. 2 days later, Mikey, the leader of the Bearcats, decides to go to the cave to check on the situation. To make matters worse, the hole has excellent natural drainage that all the water they filled is drained away. When Bakso learns about it, he turns into an ice-making vending machine and keeps putting ice cubes into the hole. Before fighting the Flame Skeletitan, Lammies asks Bakso if he really wants to be a human. Bakso hasn't really thought about it yet. He really wants to become human at first so that he can talk with Lammies more, but he soon realizes a problem. The vending machine can help Lammies a lot. If he becomes human, he will not be able to continue to provide her with these helps. Lammies learns that Bakso is not yet sure if he wants to become a human and tells him what she really thinks, that is she hopes to one day fight alongside Bakso. Bakso is impressed by Lammies and finally confirms his desire to become human again. After the preparations, the flame Skeletitan comes to the maze. They take the opportunity to activate the trap and let it fall into the hole. Mikeen is happy and surprised to notice that the flames on the flame Skeletitan's body have been extinguished. It turns out that Boxo put dry ice instead of ice cubes in the hole. When undergoing sublimation, the dry ice will absorb a lot of heat, keeping the temperature below the ignition point of combustibles, and that's why the flames are extinguished. But the flame Skeletitan has not yet been defeated and they must launch a powerful attack. Carryoil proposes to throw Boxo into the hole and smash the flame Skeletitan. Worrying Boxo will be damaged, Lammies rejects his offer. Not wanting to miss the chance to defeat the flame Skeletitan, Carryoil decides to lead the team into the hole. Boxo is afraid that they will suffer from the toxic effects of the carbon dioxide and has to find a way to stop them, so he turns into a vending machine that sells adults-only magazines. Lammies is very shy. She scolds Boxo for being perverted and knocks him away. Boxo falls into the hole and smashes the flame Skeletitan. In order to get the flame Skeletitan coin, he turns into a coin-operated vacuum cleaner. Finally, he fills the barrier with balloons and turns into a cardboard vending machine to fly to the ground. As Boxo has only one wish and does not need to have 2 coins, he sells the flame Skeletitan coin to Carryoil for 100 gold coins. And that's the end of the video. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I will bring more excitement anime in the future. Thanks for watching. Bye.